Here in the same building that the museum is located in. And Dr. Ting is a molecular ecologist who studies primate evolution, and the goal of his work is to help with strategies for the protection of endangered primate populations. So I will leave it to you. Thank you for coming.
Thank you. Like Sarah said, I'm faculty here in the Department of Anthropology. If you don't know much about me, I got here about 2 years ago, so this is my 4th semester here at the University of Iowa, so I'm settling in quite nicely. It's a nice place to live. Like Sarah said, I'm a molecular anthropologist, so I'm a biological anthropologist, but more specifically, I'm a primate molecular ecologist. That's how I would define myself. So what that means is I use genetics or molecular methods to investigate ecological questions involving wild primate populations. So this involves a combination of field work and lab work. Most of my field work has been in Africa, so I've been in and out of Africa for the past 5 years. And a lot of my work also involves endangered species. So I work a lot in conservation genetics, or what is known as conservation genetics, so using genetics to help designate conservation priorities and help inform conservation decisions. So today's talk is a little bit different than what I'm used to doing. Usually I give a heavy scientific talk and then sprinkle a little bit of field work in. But today, because of the kind of Explorers Club theme or Explorers lecture theme, and because I think the field work is more interesting, I'm going to try to integrate more field work into it and then sprinkle in the science. I assume people are interested in the science as well, and so it just doesn't look like I'm following monkeys around Africa. So hopefully, if that description of conservation genetics isn't exactly clear, hopefully after this talk, it'll be a little bit more self-explanatory. This is a picture I took in Tanzania last summer in the Udzungwa Mountains. So I'll talk a little about the Udzungwas later on. But this is the Sanjay mangabe, which is an endangered species there, only found in that part of Africa. As many of you know, sustainability is a growing trend, or awareness of sustainability. Hopefully it's not just a fad, and it's here to stay. But there's a growing awareness of how humans are impacting our environment. So what I want to talk about today is how humans are affecting our closest relatives, the non-human primates. So this is just an example of primate diversity that you see across the world. You have your lemurs in Madagascar. You have these tarsiers in Southeast Asia, lorises in South Asia. You have various New World monkeys, spider monkeys, ukaris, this mustache tamarin in the New World. This is a red cap mangabe from Africa, these gibbons from Southeast Asia, and of course you have our very closest relatives, the great apes, orangutans, gorillas, and chimpanzees. So just an idea of the type of diversity that you see among our closest relatives. So primates are distributed across the tropical regions, so the tropical rainforests of the world. That's their kind of evolutionary niche. That's where they first evolved, and that's where you find their greatest diversity. So when you're talking about what human activities are impacting primates, you're talking about what human activities are happening in the tropics that are affecting these animals. One of them that has gained a lot of attention is deforestation. So habitat alteration, whether it's cutting down forests for cultivation or agriculture, or harvesting resources such as fuel wood, or commercial logging for market profit. A lot of attention has been paid to this type of activity, and it's widely considered to be the biggest long-term threat to primates in the wild. If you cut down their homes, they don't have places to live. So some of the forest loss that has occurred in the past 50 or 100 years is pretty astounding. So these are maps of Sumatra over here and Borneo. So the amount of forest coverage that has been lost. This is predicted out to 2020. This is where orangutans live. So they're endemic to these islands. You have the Sumatran orangutan and the Bornean orangutan. And we will most likely see, or almost definitely see, the Sumatran orangutan go extinct within our lifetime. It's now restricted to a small forest fragment in the very northeastern part of Sumatra. So this forest, cutting down these forests has had a devastating effect on some of these primate populations. Now, it's not just total net forest loss, but it's also forest fragmentation. So you can have a landscape, and if you fragment it into various small subpopulations or small forest fragments that create subpopulations, sometimes these populations can't exchange gene flows with one another, so animals can't cross these matrix areas that separate the fragments. So this will limit animals from finding mates, limit animals from finding resources, and so forth. So you can also have things like reduction in genetic diversity in these fragments, which increases the effects of genetic drift, which you can increase the incidence of inbreeding, decrease the adaptive potential of these animals for to change when the environment changes. So habitat fragmentation, not just habitat loss, plays a large role as well. So another activity that is not as well known as deforestation is hunting. So why do humans hunt in these areas? Why do they hunt primates? Or why do they hunt animals in these tropical rainforests? For a variety of reasons, for skins and organs, for either ceremonial or medicinal purposes. If you kill, sometimes they will hunt crop raiders, so animals or primates that are destroying their commercial products. There's the pet trade as well, hunting to capture animals to sell into the pet trade. And then also hunting for food as a protein resource. And that's what I want to give a little bit more attention to, because it's it's the other major threat that primates face. While I said the long-term threat to primates may be deforestation, hunting in many areas such as West Central Africa, parts of Asia, and parts of the Americas poses a more immediate threat to primates. So basically, humans can hunt out a primate population before the environment, before the forests are cut down. And you have good examples of this. For example, in Ghana, you have this thing called the empty forest syndrome, where you have these large, pristine, lush forests that are devoid of large mammals, including primates, because they've just all been hunted out. So sorry for these gruesome images, but this is the reality of what's going on. Many people believe, or many people might think this is really unusual or maybe gross to be eating primates like monkeys and gorillas and chimpanzees. But you can go to these areas and you can go to restaurants and you can order bushmeat off menus. So bushmeat is this wild meat that's coming out of the forest. So often you find primate meat in these restaurants. But what I want to emphasize is that this is just a cultural difference. There's nothing unusual about this. Just like you may go to the supermarket and you may buy locally grown or produced meat as for a protein resource, you might go and buy a Mana beef from the grocery store or Iowa pork. They're doing the same thing. They're going to these markets and they're buying the local protein resource that's coming out of forests that are nearby. I want to emphasize that a lot of this hunting is not subsistence hunting, so it's not just hunting for an individual's family or for local trade within a village or between close villages. This is market hunting, so it's highly commercialized. Bushmeat crosses international boundaries. There are high-profile cases, for example, in New York City, of bushmeat coming in and being confiscated by customs. It's not being done by traditional methods necessarily, not necessarily by bows or snares. There's a person using a bow, a person setting up a snare. Shotgun hunting and using machine guns like AK-47s to wipe out these populations is not that uncommon. So why are primates so susceptible to extinction? Humans obviously have an impact on all of the animals in these forests that primates share. So why are primates especially susceptible to going extinct, or especially susceptible to these threats? For one, they have large body size. So for a hunter, something with large body size is desirable. It's more bang for your buck if you kill something with large body size, more meat to sell. Along with large body size comes a slow reproductive rate. So they reproduce more slowly. They are often incapable of rebounding from population crashes. And also, they're sensitive to habitat disturbance. So They often rely on specific food items. If that food item is a commercially valuable item, some kind of timber, then they're in competition with humans for those resources. If it is a food item that is widely dispersed and the landscape is fragmented, they may not be able to collect enough of the resources to survive. So these are some of the reasons why primates are in danger of going extinct from this human activity that I've been talking about. How do we go about protecting or saving or conserving these primates? Before you go on the ground and start trying to do conservation, you need to have an idea of what you're conserving and how to do it. In other words, you have to designate conservation priorities. This is just the kind of cold, hard facts of it. We don't have enough money to save everything. If we had unlimited funds, sure, we could save everything, but that's just not possible. So we have to make tough choices as far as what is most important to protect, what is most endangered. So how do we do this? One way is through the IUCN Red List. So the IUCN is very heavily involved in designating conservation priorities. Every year they come out with this red list that assesses the threat levels to all the plants and animals in the world. So these categories such as near threatened, vulnerable, endangered, critically endangered, these are all categories that are developed by the IUCN Red List. The next thing you might do to designate conservation priorities is to create an action plan. So this is also done by the IUCN. So this takes a certain group that you're looking at, in this case it's African primates, and lists the priorities that need to be accomplished for conservation to happen. So whether it's looking at certain species or looking at certain landscapes, action plans typically designate what needs to be done as far as conservation or what research needs to be done in order to better inform conservation strategies. So this is a pretty large undertaking for large groups of animals, such as African primates, to survey all of African primates and designate priorities. So this is the last one that was done in 1996. And the monkey on here is a red colobus monkey. It's not a chimpanzee or a gorilla. You often hear about chimps and gorillas when you're talking about endangered African primates. But it's widely known or widely accepted that red colobus monkeys are one of the, if not the most endangered group of primates in Africa, and certainly one of the most endangered primate groups in the world. So this is an idea of what red colobus monkeys look like, the variation that you see across Africa in these monkeys. They do not exist in zoos. For whatever reason, we cannot keep them alive in captivity, so they're only found in the wild. And one of the problems with red colobus monkeys as far as conservation goes is we don't know where to start as far as these conservation priorities I'm talking about. There are all these different populations, and we don't have a good idea of which ones are most distinct. If you're trying to preserve biodiversity, you want to preserve genetic diversity, you want to preserve evolutionary history, you want to preserve evolutionary distinct lineages in order to prevent the loss of evolutionary history, but we don't know which ones are most distinct. So that's one of the problems. To give you an idea of the threat levels of these monkeys, so these are different morphs, these numbers, whether you want to call them species or subspecies, that's up to you, but numbers 1 and 2 are endangered. Number 3 is Miss Waldron's red colobus, which we think is extinct. So if it is extinct, that represents the first primate extinction we've had in the modern era since the early 1900s. Number 4 is the Niger Delta red colobus, just recently discovered in the 90s and already critically endangered. Number 5 and 6, endangered. Number 7 is Bouvier's red colobus, probably extinct, hasn't been seen in decades. You have this whole Central African assemblage, which we really don't know what's going on there. It's an area of civil unrest. We don't have a lot of data, probably under heavy hunting pressure.